You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we will be doing lots of politics and public policy this evening because we have as our guest State Representative Jeanne Ives, who, of course, more importantly than state representative, is that she is challenging Bruce Rauner for governor in the Republican primary. Jeanne, how's it going?
Great.
You think you got this thing locked up?
I wouldn't say that. You know, we want all our voters to turn out, and if all of our voters turn out on March 20th, we will win.
So it's just get out the vote. It's the traditional blocking and tackling, and that's what it's because you just get out the vote. You just know who your voters are, you get out the vote, you inspire them, right?
Absolutely. We think that, the turnout's a little bit lower than 2014 as it stands right now. But we know that there's a large percentage of folks that are still undecided in this Republican primary. Because Rauner's been pretty effective at lying about me, and we've been able to beat him back, which is why there's been more undecideds that came up in the latest polling. And so what we know is that if they understand exactly who I am, we're going to win on March 20th. We have 6 more days to connect with voters and let them know about this campaign.
So lying, you're saying that Governor Rauner, Bruce Rauner, the guy you sat when we last spoke for our show, which was almost 4 years ago, in August of 2014.
I don't even remember, but okay, if you say so.
All I'm saying is, you were supporting him then.
Absolutely.
That's no secret.
I've not denied that.
Of course not.
Of course, I sat down there under the superminority with no backstop for any of the bad policy decisions. So like many other Republicans, I helped elect Bruce Rauner in 2014, believing that he would be the conservative reform governor and believing that he truly did not have a social agenda. Because we knew his wife was pretty liberal. And boy, he turned out to be somebody who he is not, who he did not say he was. And that's where we are.
On everything, the
economic
issues,
just about everything,
social issues,
economics and social. He basically got nothing done. He did some crony corporate bailouts. He didn't run his agencies effectively. You've got this entire Quincy Veterans Home catastrophe that has unfolded over now
what should
nearly
have been
3
done there?
years.
What would you have done? If you had been governor in 2015, people would know Legionnaire's disease, I believe 12 people died, 12 vets died.
13
total, but I think 12 in 2015,
veterans,
right then.
Yeah, 12 veterans, and then one who was a spouse of a veteran. Right. So 13 deaths, 11 lawsuits against the taxpayers of the state of Illinois for failure to perform to duty. And then now, after his PR stunt of staying there, you've got 4 more people diagnosed with Legionnaire's disease. He should have moved them out immediately. If he had been in a private setting, a private nursing home setting, they would have moved those folks out because Legionnaire's is a preventable disease. And people should not be dying over that in 2018.
Okay, so it's preventable. Would you have done it right in 2015?
Absolutely.
As soon as somebody died, you would have looked at it and said,
absolutely,
that's unsafe, get them out of there.
That's unsafe, and as soon as you knew that there was additional cases popping up nearly monthly at that point in 2015, you have to get them out of there. You cannot continue that. And that's what should have been done. They should have been moved out of while they diagnosed the situation and came up with a plan to fix it.
So the other big thing, well, there's so many big things.
There's so many big things. So, we're back to
what's the biggest thing? What is the other biggest failure of Bruce Rauner other than, I'm not saying that was big, other than obviously what happened at the vet, and obviously having people continue to die?
Yeah, that's
huge. What comes to mind? What else is huge? This is the hit list of Bruce Rauner's biggest failures. What's number 2?
Nobody can trust Bruce Rauner. He's lied to everybody about everything.
How about taxes? Because he said
he's also responsible for that 32% tax increase. There's no doubt about it. He failed to hold 15 Republicans together against that Madigan tax increase. And this is a man who said that he wants to repeal that tax increase now when he made no phone call to tell Republicans to vote against that.
At all.
And on top of it,
you would know, because you were a state rep.
There was no retribution. Well, I didn't vote for it, and I wasn't going to vote for it. I was never going to get that phone call.
Right.
I didn't need a phone call.
But
the point is, though, here's the deal. Yeah. There's been 0 retribution for the 15 Republicans who actually signed on to that. There's been nothing done on top of it. Yeah. Well, other folks have. Governor Rauner didn't run it. In fact, Governor Rauner is helping finance some of those state reps who voted for the 30% tax increase. He's helping finance their campaigns. What does this tell you? His back was up against the wall, and he was okay with that tax increase because he needed it. He
Why did he
needed
need
it.
it? Why did he need it?
Because he could not otherwise have gotten a budget through. He could not otherwise have moved the state forward. He couldn't do anything. His back was up against the wall. So he wanted out of that situation, which is why he let that happen and why nobody's been held to account from his perspective on that tax increase. Now, one more thing. The budget he just proposed about a month ago, he spends every dime of that tax increase. So if he was serious about repealing that tax increase, he would have budgeted for the tax increase to go away, but he hasn't.
Would you have done that if you were there? Because budgeting meant, I guess you kept spending at $37 billion, which we were.
Well, I'd like to make the argument that, first of all, I would have never put us in that place. So after 3 years of an Ives administration, you would have never seen us up with our back against the wall with a 32% permanent tax increase sitting out there ready to happen.
What would you have done if we scroll it back? He got a deal for fiscal year 2015. We don't have to go into those, but he and Madigan cut a deal. I don't think there was much of an increase, was there?
Well, no, they never cut
For
necessarily
2015?
deal. Governor Rauner, after telling every Republican to vote against all of the budget bills, signed the education bill. Okay, he signed it because he wanted to make sure schools were open. Understandable, I get it, I understand it. But he told all of the Republicans to vote against it and then went back behind our back and signed the education bill.
Is this 2015?
This is 2015.
Okay.
So if he wanted to have a budget showdown with Mike Madigan, he should have had it in 2015.
That would have been
Because
the time.
after that, you had a continuation of back bills piling up, and then you had the courts take over and dictate our level of spending, and so and then you saw Madigan literally, rub his hands with glee, saying, "Hey, this is the 7th time we've now passed an appropriation bill with no reforms," basically sticking it to the governor. So if you're going to take on Mike Madigan in that way, then just do it and be forthright about it and do it at the beginning.
Okay, so there is that. He started out the wrong way. He lied, in a sense, you would say, to the state reps when he told you folks not to go along with the education bill, and then he went ahead with it.
Yeah, I wasn't voting for it anyway. It was out of balance.
But he told
But he told everybody
else to do
that,
it.
yes.
Okay.
And many of my colleagues were very upset with him from the beginning, which really set up the disaster over the next 2 years. So the mistrust of the governor began very early, and then it became just a snowball effect after one policy mistake, after another policy mistake, after another policy mistake. For example, then you had it was either, I'm so much to talk about here. I believe it was in late 2015. At that point now, we were withholding other state funds from municipalities that needed those funds for the road program or for other things. And by law, we're supposed to get them, but for having not appropriated. I'll tell you what, I was very forthright in stepping in early and telling Rauner's administration, I am voting to release other state funds. This is not general revenue funds. This is other state funds due municipalities to help run their police and their fire station and take care of taxpayers. And I actually led on that issue, and I signaled to them early, I'm voting for that bill, I'm voting for that bill. And what did you find out? Pretty much the entire Republican caucus got behind that effort and told Rauner, we're not going with you on this one. We're voting to release this money that our municipalities need.
Okay.
So I was instrumental in that.
So in 2016, 2017 fiscal years, there was that impasse in the budget. Rauner kept saying, I just want some reforms. I'll give you revenue, he said to Speaker Madigan. Just give me some reforms.
Sure.
If you were in that situation, I know you'd say you wouldn't be, but if you were there instead of him being governor, how would you have handled that situation 2016, 2017? You're looking for reforms. Would you have offered Speaker Mike, we'll give you revenue in exchange for reforms? Was that a wise move?
I would have never put that deal on the table. I would have never offered revenue.
Okay.
50% of Illinoisans want to leave the state of Illinois. And the reason they want to leave is over taxes.
See,
So, I mean, you'd have to have that assumption that we actually need more taxes. We don't need more taxes. I would have taken a deep dive into the budget, and I would have started cutting every nonsense program that we don't need. I would have gone to an austerity budget, and I would have connected directly with the voters, so that they understood the games being played against them. That's what I would have done. It would have been a dramatically different scenario because, legislators understand a couple different pressure things. The first is they understand money, which, Madigan has a lot of and is willing to finance their campaigns. But the second thing they understand is voter pressure. And so in the state of Illinois, if Madigan's there, great, happy to work with the guy. If he's not there, if he's there and he doesn't want to work with me, we'll work around him. And we'll work around him by going straight to the voters. And we'll make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Well, do you think you would have gotten any reforms as you were doing that slashing spending?
Yes.
You would have cut spending. You would have gotten, which reforms would you have gotten?
Well, we would have gone right out. I mean, here's the deal. We would have gone immediately for pension reform. Pension reform is the biggest monkey on our back. We have got to take care of this issue. And the number one reform we can do, even before the constitutional amendment, because that takes, a little bit more of a lift. The number one reform we can do is new hires go into a 401k style program. That signals to everybody that we're going to stop digging the hole. That's a huge signal. And so we're going to go after that in my administration. Every new hire in a 401k. And it's actually something that I've talked with a number of public sector employees about. It's something that they agree is a reasonable ask. And certainly the majority of private sector taxpayers want that as well. They understand that because that's all they've got to
So he didn't do that at all?
No,
he didn't suggest that to
No,
anybody
no.
in the legislature?
Nope.
Why do you suppose that was?
Well, he wanted to do a deal with John Cullerton on his more,
Traditional consideration model?
consideration model,
Yeah.
exactly. And then they ended up, settling on Tier 3 hybrid model. And that plan, Tier 3 is not
Okay.
going anywhere, by the way. It's not going anywhere. There's no start date to it. It's got to go out for determination by the Social Security Administration that it's actually compliant with Social Security. It's got to go through all sorts of other analysis before it can even be enacted. The earliest it'll be enacted is maybe 2020, and by then it's a forgotten item. It's
So
not
you
gonna
would have
happen.
had surefire some pension reform.
Yeah,
How
absolutely.
much would you have saved over the course of 3 years had you done that? Do you
Yeah,
have
we're not
any
going
rough
to save
idea?
anything. No, we're not going to save anything.
Because
with a
it's all
401k.
coming up in the...
Yeah, it's all,
Yeah.
we're not going to save anything in our 401k
But you're not
program.
incurring any more
We're not
liabilities.
incurring
That's
any
the
more
main- that's the main
liability,
thing.
and
Yeah.
we're signaling
Okay.
that we're going to then, you can't even deal with the unfunded liability until you've frozen off this system. That's the whole impetus behind a 401k.
Okay.
And so that's the first win. And then you can go forward and you can talk about the other things that need to happen because these plans are falling into insolvency. And when you have the court stepping in like they have in Harvey and directing that $15 million be paid immediately and property taxes be hiked immediately to fund fire pensions in the small, nearly bankrupt city of Harvey, guess what? When the courts start directing the level of property taxes, it's time to put the sale sign out in front of your house and leave. And if that happens wholesale across the state of Illinois, we're going to have a lot more problems than we have right now.
So we can get to some of these other things. What would you have done next as a reform after pension reform? Have you gotten
Medicaid
much?
reform,
What's number two?
Medicaid reform. Obviously, the largest portion of our general revenues goes to Medicaid, and I would have asked for
How
a
much is that
full
approximately?
waiver.
Do you have a ballpark?
It's $9-10 billion.
Okay, so it's a big deal for
It's
the
a big
general,
deal.
along with the pensions, obviously.
Yeah, and education.
And
we need
education.
education
Those
reform
are the
too.
three main
yeah,
drivers.
those are
Okay.
big drivers of our costs.
So what would you have done on Medicaid?
I would ask for a full waiver from the federal government so that we can design and implement the programs that we know can work better in the state of Illinois. And I would have worked with my doctors more than anybody else in figuring out exactly how we can deliver services at a more reasonable cost. And I would have also said that if you're an able-bodied single adult, guess what? You're going to work if you want your Medicaid benefits. You're going to have to do something. You're going to have to do 20 hours of work a week. You're going to have to volunteer, or you're going to have to be in some sort of job
So
training
you
program.
believe in that work ethic?
Absolutely.
That's part of who you were.
Absolutely.
You grew up on a farm, is that right?
I didn't grow up on a farm. No,
Yeah?
I did not grow up on
No,
a farm.
okay.
No.
You got
but,
that wrong.
Yeah.
But you
no.
believe in the work ethic.
No. I grew up in a farming community. And my
Farming
three
community,
uncles,
okay,
my
okay.
three uncles all owned farms in the community I grew up in, and we all worked on their farms during the summers. So
then-
I'm used to that sort of work ethic. I get it. And that's why I picked Rich Morthland as my running mate.
Okay.
Rich Morthland is a farmer, and he's a community college professor, and he's from Rock Island County, where they see the outmigration going right across the Iowa border. You've got people working in Illinois, living in Iowa, not paying property taxes in Illinois, paying very little income taxes in Illinois, relatively, not paying really sales taxes in Illinois because they're doing all their shopping and they're doing their living in Iowa.
Because
And
of the
those are-
taxes.
Because of the taxes in the state of Illinois. So we picked Rich for a reason. He represents the forgotten part of Illinois by the political ruling class in Chicago.
Okay, so what next for reform? We've got pensions,
Medicaid, education.
Medicaid, you go to education, school choice. Do you think that would save money?
I've always been a proponent of school choice.
Quality, it also improves the quality.
Improves the quality. Absolutely. We have
Rauner
a
never
quality
did
issue.
any of that because he said he was going to, but he told me, he said, Jeff, I want to do the economic stuff the first year so that next year we would turn to education, but he never really got to school choice, did he? Charter
Well,
schools
he
or
did
anything.
his tax credit scholarship as part
Finally
of the education
right.
funding reform bill.
But it's a small bill.
It's a very small bill. It's a very small bill. I mean, they want to say it's the largest first-time initiative in the United States. God bless them, great. I was in favor of that too. But the rest of the bill was a disaster, and it bailed out Chicago public schools at the cost of all taxpayers statewide. And it socialized really $17 billion in debts that CPS has will now be essentially picked up by a lot of the taxpayers.
Okay, so this is
Over
important.
time.
I'm holding up a mailer that I got, other people got.
Sure,
It
yeah.
says, we got to go through this quickly. Jeanne Ives is part of the problem in Springfield, it says. Ives wants to keep Mike Madigan's 32% tax hike.
Yeah, completely false.
Yeah, you don't want it.
No, what I was actually honest with in a Crane's interview, which is where he's taken that from, and I said, look, you know what? After this, I'm not a legislator. So it would take legislation to repeal that 32% tax increase. If the legislation comes to my desk, I will sign the repeal bill on that. But I don't control the legislature.
Right.
So you have to work the coalition. So what I will do instead is I'll budget to prove to the legislature that we can return some of people's money to themselves. I'll budget as if the tax increase will go away. But I'm not going to do it until we pay off these back bills.
Which
We're
is
gonna
how
do
much,
that in
how
2
much do we
years.
have in back bills?
Well, now we're approaching 10 billion.
10 billion. That's a lot of money to pay off before you can get to.
Absolutely,
So
but
what
it's
do you think?
fair.
You were
That's a
asked
fair
this,
way to do it.
Weren't you asked this somewhere else? If you want to repeal, when would you do it? Do you have an idea?
I'd start to budget for that in 2 years.
2 years. Okay.
Because by the time you get into office, you're already halfway through the budget year. You're already halfway through that budget year.
Right, so it's gone.
So
Okay.
you've got to take that 2 years. I mean, he's just completely unrealistic. And if he really didn't like that tax increase, he should have had his FY 2019 budget reflect that.
Well,
but
here's
it
one.
doesn't.
He says, you oppose, this is from Bruce Rauner, Ives opposed freezing property tax. Opposed freezing property taxes. Did you oppose freezing property taxes?
I did not oppose freezing property taxes. I actually want to lower property taxes and cap them at a hard rate of 1% of your EAV, of your value.
You want to lower them first and then cap them.
Yeah, but here's the deal.
What's he saying? What does he mean by this?
We took 18 votes to freeze property taxes. They were all scam bills. They were sham bills. Not only I, but nearly every single Republican legislator, if not every single one of them, knew they were sham bills. And so we all just went not voting. We're not voting. We're not voting. This is not real legislation. We're not voting it. 18 times there was that vote to freeze property taxes. Are your property tax frozen? No, because the Democrats don't want to do it.
So
and
sham
Bruce
bill.
Rauner,
Okay.
here's what's worse though. I said to Bruce Rauner, he called me about this property tax freeze vote coming up, and I said, Bruce, let's call Madigan's bluff. Everybody ought to vote for it because he doesn't want this. We ought to call his bluff. Bruce Rauner said, please, Jeannie, don't vote for that property tax freeze vote. Don't vote for it. He said, that's what he said. I said, but I want to call his bluff, sir. We got to call his bluff. He said, no, wait until they get my bill in front of them. Of course, Bruce Rauner's never getting his bill in front of the legislature because Madigan's blocking him. He didn't want us to vote for a property tax freeze because it didn't have his name on it. He didn't want to.
So is that what
He's
you would
a
say to
liar.
him? If he were right here, you
Yeah,
would
I
say
would
that
tell
right
him
to his
that.
face? What
He
would
knows
you say?
we had that conversation.
You'd call him a liar right to his face?
Absolutely, because he
Okay.
is lying about me.
Okay, he says you were the only House member to vote against
A property
increasing
tax
the property tax exemption. True or
Okay, that's a
false?
great one.
Okay.
That is true. I'm the only one who
Voted against
understood
it.
that the bill was another scam bill. I'm the only one who knew it was a scam bill. That bill went nowhere. It went to the Senate. Nothing happened with it. That bill in my district actually would have increased the majority of the people that live in my district's to business taxes. It would have increased business taxes. The Illinois Manufacturers said so. The Daily Herald said so. Taxpayer Federation said so. That was a scam bill, and it went nowhere, Jeff. So I'm the only one who voted on principle because that bill was a bad deal. Bad deal.
We only got a minute or two left, but we have to get
And
this.
the bill died, by the way, went nowhere.
Have to get this because, see, people say, the straw that broke the camel's back, tell me if I'm right, I've heard this from other
Yeah.
people. The reason why you got into the race was HB 40 when, I guess you'd say, he lied to the cardinal, he lied to others about that he was not going to support taxpayer-funded abortions. Is that correct? Did he say that to the cardinal, and did he then lie?
That's what the cardinal has revealed through the press. That's what he said. I wasn't in that conversation, but the cardinal has said that that Bruce Rauner was not truthful with him. So here's the deal. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. All right. That's when, okay, we knew now for sure we have a huge character issue with this guy. Because if he'll lie to a priest, he'll lie to anybody, and that's what he's been doing. So, that's when the calls started to come in. Somebody needs to challenge this guy. And I'll tell you what, I was not going to sit down there and watch him pretend to be a Republican governor for another 4 years.
But this gets
he deserved to be challenged, and we're taking on the big boys when nobody else would.
So it gets to the core, because if the Republican base is upset with Rauner on the economic issues, and they're even more upset on the social issues, the pro-life, so forth.
Sure.
Because the pro-life folks would tolerate him, they thought, if he's good on the economic issues, but at least he's not going to do something like taxpayer-funded abortions. So the question to you is, can you, when people say, we need Rauner, he's got the money, we have to get him there. This is not me, but the Republicans, some Republicans say this, if you want to win, you need the guy with the money, and you say what to him? You say what to these people who say, you need Rauner if you want to win? The general
Not
election.
true.
The general election.
That is not true.
Why?
Because we're going to meet a millionaire, and then we're going to beat a billionaire, and we're going to prove to people that the grassroots can rise up and take back their state. So it's not true that we need his money to win.
Thank you so much, Jeanne Ives, for coming here. She is a Republican candidate in the Republican primary for governor. She is the challenger. She is running against Bruce Rauner. Bruce, we wish you were here. If you still want to show up, come up. Thank you so much for coming,
Thank
Jeanne.
you, Jeff.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right. Well, I hope you liked that interview, and I hope you learned a lot about Jeanne Ives and why she decided to run for governor in the Republican primary against Bruce Rauner, what she's campaigning on, and so forth. There are a few things we didn't have time for, so let me try to fill in a few holes. Something that's important to remember here is that, as I mentioned earlier in the introduction, Jeanne and her husband are West Point grads. What do we know about West Point grads? They take an oath. Don't lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate any of those from anybody who does that, okay? So we talked about lying, and you're going to decide. So, you saw what Jeanne had to say about the mailers, these mailers that Bruce Rauner has been sending out. You heard her say, not important what I think. It's important what you think. And you should read the mailers. We read them to you. You should listen to Jeanne. We wish the governor were here, but you'll have to find him to get his response. But she's basically saying he's lying. And, the thing is, if you're on West Point, you don't lie, cheat, or steal. You don't tolerate it from others. That's important. Do you want a governor? If you conclude he's lied, do you want somebody who's lied? Because all politicians do a little puffery, but I think she's saying way overboard here. The other thing, if you're sitting here and you've been listening to these folks go back and forth and their numbers, you're probably thinking about, and we didn't really have time to get into it as much, and we wish we had, is, what's good for you? If you're in Illinois, you're really thinking about, what produces growth? Economic growth? What produces jobs? What keeps people here? Because then you don't have to tax as much. There's sort of scale economies to having more people. Illinois is losing people, okay? We know that. Sometimes you hear people say dumb things, even journalists, and they say, well, sometimes you gain a little, you lose a little, some states gain. No, we know we're losing relative to other states because we're losing Congress people in apportionment. Illinois once had 20 Congress people. Now they're down to 18. Some would say we're on our way to 16. If that happens, we've lost relatively 20% of our Congress people. We've lost 20% of our population, okay? I mean, do the math. 2 out of 20 is 10%. 4 out of 20 is 20%. So you're losing people. Why? Because the economy is not doing well. We're not producing jobs. So you have to think. I'm not going to go through all this. You have to think, why is that? Does it matter that you don't have a budget? Does it matter that you didn't get any reforms under Rauner? Look, he was talking about workers' comp reform. He was saying that's important to get manufacturers here, but he didn't do the job. We don't have it. You could say, well, there's a Democratic majority, Jeff, and all that, but that's true, but there's going to be probably a Democratic majority whoever takes over the reins, whether it's Rauner again, whether it's Jeanne Ives, whether it's a Democrat, something. This state has to do something differently, because we're not on a good path. We're losing population. We're not attracting skilled people. We're not, yes, we get some companies who come here, but more are leaving than are coming. More jobs are going out than are coming. Do you want to be in a state like that? Look, I don't have a horse in this race. I'm not for Jeanne. I'm not for Bruce. I'm not for JB. I'm not for Chris Kennedy. I'm not for Daniel. Not for or against any of the Democrats or Republicans. I'm just trying to lay it out for you. And we've invited all the Democratic candidates here. We may be able to show them to you, but we haven't been able to get them. We invited Bruce Rauner here, the only one of the 5 who decided to show up, subject yourself to some questioning, and talk to you folks. That would be Jeanne Ives. So that we endorse. We endorse all candidates coming. We endorse everybody coming to talk to you, but more than that, we don't do. So you have to decide which of these candidates is best. If you care about economic growth, if you care about jobs, which one is best? Is it a Republican or a Democrat? And then if you've decided that, if you're going to go with either party, which one of those 3 candidates? There are really 3 major candidates in the Democratic primary running. That is Pritzker, that is Biss, that is Chris Kennedy. 2 on the Republican side, that is Jeanne Ives, that is Rauner. It's your choice, okay? It's your choice. And you've got to decide what's important. You've got to decide, does the stuff about taxes, does that matter? We've spent a lot of time talking with Jeanne about taxes going up. And if that's the case, did that hurt job growth or not? You decide, okay? The Democrats, if we have them here, if you get to see some of the show, you're going to know Democrats are talking about the general election. They want to get a progressive income tax going. They say it'll be fairer. Will it be fairer, or will it just drive skilled people away because you're taxing them even more? Now, Daniel Biss wants a financial institutions tax. Will that drive financial institutions away, or will it just bring money in so he can lower taxes elsewhere? You decide. We discuss. You decide. Okay? Jeanne wants, you heard her say, she wants to cap property taxes as 1% of your home value. She explained that she's not, it wasn't so much that she was against a freeze, she was against a sham bit of legislation that wasn't really a freeze. And anyway, I think she's saying, if you have high property taxes, you don't want to freeze them, you want to lower them and then cap them, okay? You got to have some subtlety here. You got to watch the words when people use it. All right. We hope you enjoyed the show. We just want to remind you, the basic thing to remember here, is you come back next week and every week to Public Affairs.
Public Affairs very much thanks Siprit PC, our underwriter, for helping to make the production of this show possible.